welcome to the Dice and Destiny Fireside Chat. I'm your honorable host, Beck, and joining me today is your quite courageous DM, Metal Kitty.
Hello.
I'll be asking some questions today, but I just wanted to start off, how are you doing today?
I'm not doing too badly today, to be fair. It's been a busy week and it's been an interesting one, to say the least. So, with that being said, City of Viridia has kicked off to an excellent start, but that's not what this show's about.
Excellent. Well, I just wanted to ask, I know you've been running this campaign for quite some time, and one thing I always think about is sort of this return to intent. So when you first started the campaign, what was the core idea, maybe theme, genre, or story idea that you were aiming to tell?
So the idea originally was to have a group of friends from modern world, 2024, 2025 type times, suddenly get dropped into a fantasy survival and discovery story. To see how they would cope with the modern gear in that fantasy world and to essentially just track their journey across this vast continent I've created, that to see how they would work out how they're going to get back home, and indeed what era they're going to get back home in. That's another story, though.
So now this is what you're aiming for. Has it stuck along those lines? Has the story or at least your idea of what you want it to be, has it changed at all, having ran through much of the campaign so far?
There have been a few changes that I've tweaked towards the end of the story. I'm not going to reveal those for obvious reasons. But for the most part, the story in the campaign is still on track to what it originally was. Of course, player decisions, as you're well aware, often interfere with big plans.
Excellent. So that leads me to my next question. Are the players, well, you kind of just answered it. Are they on the path that you expected or wanted them to be on right now, or that they somewhat derailed the train?
There were a couple of points where I thought they might have derailed the train, but overall they're still on the main path and the main story quest. I'll be completely honest, it feels to me like I'm railroading them, but I really am not. These are the choices that the players are making are genuinely in line with the story and where the hints have been given for them to go. They have the freedom to turn around and just walk off west or walk off to the east and do something completely different. But they seem to actually want to follow the breadcrumb trail that I've been leaving behind.
Excellent. You love to see things like that. I've struggled at times with players who have wanted just to explore a broad world without really picking up small hints like that. But
Mm.
how long do you think, how many sessions do you think it took for these players to really settle into their character identities, where it was no longer trying to act like a certain character, but more so now they were just flowing, going through the story, acting with one another, and just became those characters that they are today?
So, for the most part, a lot of the group had already played in a prequel game, which is the Azure Watch, or the founding of the Azure Watch. And that's a module that I've got freely available on the D&D Void for people to actually read and look through. So a lot of the group were, as players, were already accustomed with how everyone else plays around the table. In terms of this group and the introduction of newer players as well to them, they settled down as a team pretty quickly. But in terms of them settling into their characters, it probably wasn't until just after they got outside of the just outside of Ironstead that they sort of really started meshing together.
All right. And so, Ironstead, that's one of your cities, isn't it? One of the bigger ones?
Ironstead is one of the bigger port towns in the world, yes.
So I know that is an Azure Watch base. Is that sort of the link between the two campaigns then? Linking the prequel and now of Dice and Destiny?
In terms of linking the prequel to Of Dice and Destiny, there would have been a very different start to the campaign if the previous party didn't deal with the corruption that was rotting through the town with the Crimson Cloak Syndicate.
Right.
It would have been a very different start.
And let's go more on to just the start in general and thereafter. How much of it was pre-planned versus just made on the spot, improv at the table based off player choice?
So, the very beginning of the game itself, I actually had the intention, and we did this for a brief part, where I actually had one of the players who plays Chris, Tom. Um, he plays a character called Chris who was actually playing the DM for the group, playing the game of Dice and Destiny in the game in the modern world. And then there was a series of roles and events that occurred which were not they weren't scripted, they actually naturally occurred. Some of them happened a bit too quickly for me to get to grips with, so I was stuttering a little bit on that, because I was having to push things forward because someone rolled a nat 20 far too quickly. But yeah, it was entertaining hearing the DM style that Chris as a character went for, and it just boiled from there. And the events that happened obviously bring them into the world with the obsidian die. That's something else we'll probably get to.
Excellent. So this whole campaign started as sort of a D&D game in the modern world then, before they got sort of sent over here to Albion. So knowing
Yes,
this, what is Albion? Is it a world, a dream, or is it something else? What is the nature of Albion as the players
the
understand it?
the nature of Albion, as the players currently understand it is a whole new world for them. Um, to me, as DM, it's just a continent that they're currently traversing. Um, but yeah, but for the players, it's a whole new world. It's open to their influence, considering this world was essentially the world that they created for their big campaign that they were playing and then regrouped to play 10 years later, the final part of the campaign, because yeah, that's the thing that happens in D&D.
Oh, certainly. Large gaps, right?
Large gaps, long gaps, right before the final session, 5 years later, 10 years later, boom. Oh, we've all got time together. Yeah, let's actually get together and finish this game, shall we? And that was the premise of them all coming together at this one location in the
Right.
Lake District.
So, what are the current classes of your? Let's just go into the characters a little bit. What are the current classes? What are
In
they
regard,
doing?
yeah, so couple of interesting ones there. Originally, one of the players wanted to play the homebrewed farmer class, which I was more than happy for them to do. But that's since changed, and because of the complexity of it, whilst running all of this in a homebrew world, that character, Lou's character, she plays Aura, is now a cleric, essentially. But there are aspects and traits from that farmer class that we've brought in, and I'm allowing them to play about with. But other than that, we have a mastermind rogue who is Jess, who is going to be approached by a shadowy masked figure soon. We also have a Blade Singer Wizard, which is Wesley's character. And he was a martial artist in the real world, modern world, and he would teach and train students within dojos. And it surprised me that he went Blade Singer Wizard sort of combo over Monk, but he has his choices and reasons. One day we might
Certainly.
figure what those
More.
out. What else do we have? We've got Druid in the party as well, who
Oh,
is still shocked that they can speak to animals. That's Chris. And then we have, oh, so Chris or, Osiris. Osiris is the half orc that they met in Viridia. Viridia, that's the wrong campaign. The half orc that they met in Ironstead, who was assigned to them from the Azure Watch.
excellent. So a lot of my campaigns deal with this sort of existential power system that exists, right? A lot of
Mm-hmm.
the issues that happen in Lumen are not from Lumen itself, it's from extraplanar beings or worlds that have slowly been decaying. So gods are a
Yes.
really important part of any campaign. Now, Of Dice and Destiny was a game that your players themselves had created in the modern world. The gods that exist here, they their own creation, some of them, or are they new beings entirely? And that leads me into what god does your cleric currently support? Is it one that they were originally in favor with before they had come here as their own character in their character's game? Or hold on, I'm just curious more about that.
So within the game itself, Aura, our cleric, went to a chapel to actually go in there and pray to Jesus. And of course, as we all know, whenever you say a prayer, you don't normally hear anything from gods or a god or whoever you're praying to, especially in modern normal world here. And I wanted to have a bit of fun with that. So what I did was I picked a selection of about 5 or 6 different gods to play with, knowing that a couple of them were sort of agriculture and farming based deities. With Shantae, which is a deity, goddess of agriculture and farmers, and often worshipped for good crop and quite a fair and fair weather and good harvest and all the rest of that stuff. But I had fun with it. So I was throwing different gods and goddesses at her in the chapel scene, and she's actually got a whole session near enough just her with that scene. Um, and eventually she made the choice to listen to Shantae because that's the one that she felt closest to or felt gave her the more comfortable answers that she was seeking from her prayer. But she played the character really, really well. The shock of, oh my God, I've actually got a response from someone. Like, who's playing jokes on me type reactions. Um, and then Shantae showed her a vision which was basically taking her straight through the astral sea, out of the astral sea, and into our solar system to then get this zoomed out view, getting closer and closer and closer on Earth, where she hears a message that sends her into a bit of a spiral as a character, having a bit of a mental crisis when she hears and sees her vision. But I'm not going to spoil that one for those that are listening.
All right, where do we go to next from there? So, the gods. The gods are independent sources. Are they? What's the connection between the gods in this world? more so? I'm just curious.
So the gods have got a vested interest in this world, in Albion especially. Um, there's no, at the moment, there's no sort of malevolent maliciousness uh, going on. And there is a good reason for that, but they haven't discovered that in their history or their readings of the continent so far. So, for the most part, the malevolent gods have been set aside and basically blocked from the world of Albion at this moment in time. But future actions of our players could bring some of them in. Um, so I would say they're actively protecting Albion at this moment.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So this is just going to be a little bit of a tangent. So Viridia is in Albion, is it not?
Yes.
So how will the campaign of Dice and Destiny affect Viridia?
So the campaign of Dice and Destiny. So put it on a map. You have continent. If you imagine the continents where they are, then just over the other side, on maybe the next continent along, um, sort of sitting at the edge between Albion and the next continent in the world, is where Viridia is based. And a lot of it comes from the idea that within the world there is development, there is progression, there is advancements, and this city, the city of Viridia, is just that weird and wonderful place that's basically working with steam and that sort of steampunk vibe whilst mixing artificers and artificers, machinery, runic magic, ancient magic, all merged into one big city. And it just kind of sits on the edge of Albion, just out the way. It's doubtful that the players will come across it unless they actively go and explore it. But the events of City of Viridia are going to be far too much for that party to handle.
Yes,
At
I
least now.
Viridia has it's quite something, isn't it? But I
Yes,
have
it's
another question. So, gosh, I'm just gonna make another comparison to my own campaign again. I'm sorry.
go for it.
I'm someone that does good off comparisons. So my party started in the northern continent and slowly traveled to the southern part of the world.
Yes.
From what I understand, in Dice and Destiny, they started in more of a southern part of Albion, and their current goal is to get to the far north. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yes. From south
All,
to north.
all right. What is their current goal to get to? The location that they're after?
The next big location that they're after, they've just arrived at, and that is the Silver Lake cities. And there's going to be a fair chunk of the adventure that's going to happen here. But their goal currently is to get into the first layer of Londinium, which is basically a 5-tier castle in the middle of where these 5 other small towns have just basically sprawled and grown into, leaning towards the castle that was Londinium. And yeah, so they've just arrived in the Silver Lake cities and they are trying to work out what their next moves is going to be essentially to get in.
So the Silver Lake cities are sort of a cluster of arcane cities, aren't they? Or
Yes.
obviously Silver Lakes. What does this have any connection to the Fae? These cities?
There's no direct connection to the Fae in Albion, at least not directly. There are characters that have been touched or affected by the Fae. Marla, in the most recent episode that they met, for example, has been cursed with truth and sight. So she can always see the truth, and she can see the web of lies that people spin, and she can see where it trails off to and who's connected to it and that sort of thing. But it's so she's been. There are some characters that are Fey touched, and there is a reason why I'm introducing them into the campaign overall.
Hmm. All right. So I'm once again going to take a little bit of a tangent.
Mm-hmm.
So, what progress, if any, what progress clocks do you have on major events in your worlds so far?
Progression clocks. Long story short, the longer they stay in Albion, the more time will pass in the real world. And the urgency and the fear of ending up back in the modern world for them in a timeline that's maybe 10, 15, 20, 50 years ahead of where they left it. That in itself is the pressure that they're putting on themselves to try and resolve their crisis at the moment quicker. So, if there's any progression throughout the campaign, a lot of it is going to be driven by that fear that their families are going to pass. They're not going to have anything left when they go back, and it's going to be a completely different modern world when they do. So a lot of it is being driven by them by that fear. In terms of the progression of the cities, the towns, Albion, etc., we do have that steampunk city, and technology is slowly spreading out from the city itself, from Viridia, and extending outwards slowly. Hasn't quite reached much further than 2 or 3 towns so far away from the city of Viridia. So if they do travel that way, they will essentially slowly but surely start seeing some slightly more modern things, but with that sort of steampunk variety. So they might come across a couple of steam engines and things like that, or airships. But other than that, in terms of technology wise, guns, muskets, that sort of thing, like pistols and muskets, will be a thing that they'll get properly introduced to later. But for them, it's going to be like using a piece of history. So seeing that comparison from them is going to be quite entertaining if we ever get there.
Most certainly. I'm sure Lillian will bolster the spread of Iridian technology as well, especially with her now attempting to reach Rose homeland far in the north with
Mm-hmm.
trade. I'm sure that slowly but surely she will fill the trade gap that's been there for a decade or two.
Oh, without a doubt, Lillian Dickrell is she is a sly consultant, shall we, or technocrat. So yes.
All right. What moment stood out from you from not just your game, but your character interaction between the players? What moment has really stuck with you so far?
That's a really good question. I would say the moment that's actually stuck out for me was, I would say, Razorback Sally, to be fair.
Ooh. Tell me more about that. The ambush that happened there.
It wasn't necessarily meant to be an ambush. It was intentionally set up as a kill box. Um, yes, hands up, guilty, evil DM, and all that jazz. It was set up as a kill zone, as a kill box, where one of the party was supposed to die or get to that point where they weren't going to die, but they were so close to it, and something would happen to bring them back. So it had been intentionally set up that way. Yeah, so that stood out for me because that was really when I saw the change in the players going from, oh, it's just a LARP, and theorizing about maybe it was the mushrooms, maybe it's a LARP, and everyone's just like really in on it and gone so deep, and it's gone from all these wild theories to, oh crap, it's real in that single moment. And it worked really, really well to bring the whole party together to sort of go, well, fuck, how are we going to get out of this one?
It's very good. What was the first major character death, whether it be player or NPC?
Oh, I don't know.
Or
There
even, not
hasn't
even the
actually.
first, but just an NPC death that is really stuck with your characters or caused some change for them.
Mm, uh, definitely, definitely Vashovan at this point. Now he is one of the Azure Watch's targets on the red thread line of the story, which has still got a lot more to be explored upon if they choose to. But Vashovan, because he was just that sort of shady grey market type character, keeping the accounts and then skimming off the top. He wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong. What he was doing was shady and was allowing for other shady business to occur that was inherently wrong. Um, he didn't die, but one of the things that he saw from the characters when they were in the interview room, or the interrogation room, when they were being spoken to and questioned after they did the carnival event, some of the things that he saw, were not from Albion or this world, and there really wasn't much of a how do I explain this away from any of the players. So he's seen things that perhaps maybe might come back to bite him on the players on the arse later.
Very well. So, tell me about the obsidian shards.
Oh. There's a couple of theories that the players have at the moment. I'm not going to go into too much detail on what they actually are, but what I
Just
can
throw me.
say is the first theory they've got is they've got to find 20 of them, put them together, and create an obsidian D20 shaped dodecahedron. I think that's the right term. No, dodecahedron's a 10. So anyway, um, they've basically got to recreate the D20 that brought them here when it got struck by lightning from in the vision and delusion that they saw at the table when they were playing. So that's one theory. And each of these shards where it's been struck has basically got a charge of some form of element. What I don't think the players have put together yet is each of the elements contained within the shards that they're finding can be and are related to dragons and the elements that they can control. The other
Mm.
theory that they've got is a big ass shiny dragon that's basically going to help them get back home. I'm not going to say anything else other than these shards are important and the players will eventually find out why.
Alright, I'm just gonna throw one more question. Feel free to not answer.
Uh-huh.
So, obviously, D20 has been for most tabletop games that are based off of D20 dice has been sort of a symbol of fate itself. Do these
Yes.
individual shards hold any relevance in luck or fate? Like if you imagine hard to say exactly. Let's say the lucky feat, where you get these luck points. Could one of
Mm.
these shards be something akin to a luck point, where it has some sort of providence based around it, and has
In,
some narrative pull?
yeah, so in regards to fate, undoubtedly. I mean, when they managed to get three pieces of obsidian shard together, or black glass as it's known as in the world of Albion, they happened upon some very, very strong divination magic that came from it. They got a sense of being watched, and Steve, the uh, the wizard in the party, he basically lost 10 minutes of time to his memory being erased of what he saw. The others in the party didn't, so they can all recall what he was saying during those 10 minutes whilst he was detecting the magic within the shards, but he doesn't remember it himself.
All right. So who else is gunning for these shards then? Obviously, if they're known by the people of Albion, the party members can't be the only ones trying to collect them all.
No, they really aren't the ones trying to collect them all. The only ones, anyway. There is actually a order within the city that they're currently in, which is the Silver Lake cities, called the Black Glass Writ, WRIT. And they are basically trying to gather the shards for themselves because they believe that it can A, help them solve a problem that they're all facing currently, and B, they believe that it can be turned into something useful. As with any type of group that is seeking power, naturally they're going to assume a weapon of some kind.
Right. So if the players just decide, what the hell? Why go back home? You've got infinite possibilities here. They've got pretty much miracles that they can conjure in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
In the sake of the modern world, these people could be considered lesser gods, conjuring things from nothing using magic. What would happen to the world if they just ignored going back home and just left the shards to sit and rot and to be collected by whoever is seeking to collect them?
There would be a calamity of some kind. I'm not going to say much more than that, though. Needless to say, if the Black Glass Writ get enough of these shards to do what they believe they need to do, there will be a calamity.
Understood. So, how much weight do the Silver Lake cities hold in Albion? From political power to narrative pull of the campaign.
In regards to political power, it's where the most powerful seat of government within Albion sits. In regards to the narrative and the story, this is going to be where they will, for the most part, be coming back to every so often to progress their storyline. However, in terms of the events and things that's going to happen to them on their journeys, obviously player choice is a big thing there, but it's going to be very much a lot of it outside of the city with the political pressure from being within the Silver Lake
Mm.
cities.
All right. Do any gods have any stakes in the Silver Lake cities as of current?
Yes, but I'm not going to say which ones.
Damn. You got me with that one. I knew to expect it, but I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So, are the current rulers of the Silver Lake city's government puppet rulers? Or are they the ones that truly hold the power and are making these calls that the party must inevitably deal with?
So the way the Silver Lake Cities is run in terms of its governance, there were 5 towns overall, with the fifth being Londinium, the big one in the middle. And originally, it was I was thinking of like, okay, what if I had a royalty there where one ruler, make it nice and easy, hierarchical, etc. But then I was looking at that and going, well, no, because if that was the case, it would end up becoming a very, very different story
Hmm.
um, in terms of the various points of corruption with the Crimson Cloak Syndicate, etc. It would very much be it would be too easy if we had a hierarchical structure for the Crimson Cloak Syndicate to just basically overrun and win and take power within the Silver Lake cities. So I actually decided because of that, I was going to have a seat of governance where there was an odd number of governors. However, several of them are essentially in the state of corruption from the Crimson Cloak. Just because it's been dealt with in Ironstead, still a lot of outreach around the rest of Albion for the Crimson Cloak. So there is corruption going on, and it is one of the bigger parts of the story later as to what is going on.
Right. What is one major location that your players have just entirely missed thus far, voluntarily or accidentally?
So far, I wouldn't say they've really missed anything huge. Um, I mean, there was a couple of little pit stops that would have taken them on side quests that they missed whilst they were on their way to the Silver Lake cities. But then that was their choice, and instead of doing one of the side quests from within a tavern, even after the warning that they had been given that there are bandits on the road, etc., they still went off the beaten track, rescued Gary, Garantha, and then proceeded to push forward basically with getting him back home safe. That typical sort of escort quest. If they hadn't have gone and rescued him, there would have been a different side quest that would have taken them away from the Silver Lake cities that they could have chosen to accept.
Hmm. All right. I'm sorry, you mentioned escort quest, and I thought of the escort quest you made me do, and I'm so excited for that one.
Yep.
But goodness. So a little bit more to the just the overall world itself. Does Viridia answer to anyone currently? I know they're sort of in the in between Albion and another continent, somewhat.
At the moment, no. Viridia doesn't answer to any external powers.
If Liliane reaches her goal for Viridia,
Mm.
will Viridia have political sway across not just the local region, but across most of Albion? Will it become another sort of Silver Lake city where it is a force that people must answer to and keep in mind?
I feel that this is a prying question about the City of Viridia campaign. What I what I will say is, if Liliane wins out and gets her way, there will be consequences and something else that the current travelling party might end up having to deal with.
Oh, goodness. So, does Viridia have a lot of chance, just progressing as the way it is now, of becoming something comparable to the Silver Lake cities?
I would say it already is to an extent.
Hmm.
It's just the city of Viridia has, for quite some time now, many centuries, just kept itself to itself rather than reaching out. Instead, relying on people coming in to keep it going. And it's certainly worked for Viridia recently and up till recently, but now everything that they've kept trapped in is starting to break down.
Most certainly. Very well. So Viridia's being held in a very fine balance between a lot of different powers. Is that similar to how the Silver Lake cities are? I know it's got one sort of powerful governing group, but is it held in such a delicate balance akin to Viridia?
Not as delicate a balance. I couldn't do that for two separate cities. What I will say is there are a couple of factions that are, or a couple of groups that are within the Silver Lake cities that are possibly going to be at loggerheads with each other, but there wouldn't be any dire consequences if one of them was to completely get wiped out, for example. Unlike the city of Viridia, where everything is in such a delicate balance, if power is tipped one way or another, the consequences are going to be felt throughout the whole city
Right.
quite quickly.
That is very fair. So,
I couldn't do that to myself twice over.
oh no, I 100% understand. I understand, really. Players are always. And you also never can expect what players will do in response to that, too, which is a whole other beast, really.
Yes.
But
The city of Viridia is one of those cities where no matter what I do, no matter what I prepare for, I can pretty much already foresee me ripping up the plot points, the plans, and the overview that I've got um, because of player action.
oh, most certainly. And even especially due to the rotating DMs. I know I'm not as in tune with you and Novocaine on the
Hmm.
plot. So I've been sort of developing my own side plots that are adjacent to what I've
Yes.
heard so far as Ro. I've really gone into, from a DM standpoint, the knowledge that Ro as a character has. So I think that's interesting. But
Yeah.
let's get back to
Talking
talking
of
more specifically.
yeah, I was just going to very quickly say to your point there. You know that tavern that you created that the players managed to clear out the malevolence of?
Indeed.
Yeah, that tavern got basically redone by the by Roland, and it's now known as the Clockwork Cadaver.
Excellent. Every semblance of that poor man has been erased. Very good.
Pretty
Very,
much.
very good. But so how often in the- let's say just the Silver Lake cities again, does something
Mm,
like that happen when an undesirable event that has been mostly hidden comes to light? Is it swept under the rug and all traces abandoned? Or are these events, though hard, left to sit and you know, kind of shift the public morale or the perception of the cities themselves? Is it as tight of a manipulation network where everything undesirable is cleansed long before it ever reaches the public eye, or?
no, it's not that tightly controlled in the Silver Lake cities. Um, there are certain events that are occurring currently, one of which has already been mentioned to the players several times, that a couple of the streams that feed the Silver Lakes themselves are seemingly drying up for some unknown reason. And this is causing a little bit of turmoil and the extra activity from the Black Glass Rit and the sort of city guards. They're sort of stepping up a little bit of security. So there are some events that are occurring that will affect the landscape and the environment that the player's going into. But other than that, it's not that tightly controlled. So information is a little bit freer to acquire compared to the city of Viridia.
Excellent. What's one major what's one major plot point the players have just missed so far? It's a loaded
uh,
question, isn't it?
that is a loaded question. All I'm going to say on that is they really should consider what that Obsidian's doing a bit more carefully.
Mm. Could you go more on into that? Just describe the name now, a little bit of the obsidian.
um, so they currently have 3 shards which are in a lead-lined case, and they are, for the most part, lead blocks magic. Fine. So effectively, these 3 shards are inert. But there is still the obsidian inlay on Osiris's sword, and the players don't know this. Uh, the players don't know what that means overall, other than the fact that the Black Glass Writ have a way of using it and divining and locating it through their scribes, and it could essentially put them all in quite a bit of danger if they're not careful, of which currently they haven't been so careful. So that's a thing. um, in terms of what the obsidian shards are doing, they are tied to an entity of some nature, and it is definitely not from this world. It's definitely from another plane of existence. But what they don't understand is, and what they haven't got to yet, is how any of these shards have ended up here like this, and why they're being brought into Albion is tied to all of this occurring at the same time.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Really
So
can't answer any more on that, I'm afraid.
you've given much more than I honestly thought you would, which I appreciate. Sure, everyone else would too.
I hope so.
What is one character that the party has sort of discounted so far? An NPC that's more important or has more sway or understanding than the party has thought of or even considered?
Oh, definitely Varshoven.
Warshoven. So that was the man
Varsh.
from the carnival job, was it not?
Yes, that's correct.
Just go a little bit more into, if you can, what you think your players have missed out on him. The obvious that you've given them that they haven't really looked back upon, if you will.
So the fact that they haven't really looked back on it is the biggest problem for them, because there is, and he said quite clearly and openly to them, he will be in Londinium. Um, there are connecting threads to him and the Crimson Cloak Syndicate and people of importance, whilst he basically slinks around in that grey zone. But he is quite well connected. And I think that their clever ruse that they thought had succeeded, which it didn't, but there we go. I think they've overlooked that heavily. Majority of parties that I've played with prior have often turned around and gone, hang on a minute, let's think about this carefully and sort of play through the various NPC roles and their connections and all the rest of it. But when it comes to him and the Azure Watch, um, let's just say it was quite heavily overlooked what ended up happening.
All right. Well, if any of them are listening on here, I hope they take that as a cue to start considering the future, because
Mm-hmm.
it's coming. It always is.
There is one that might be listening.
Just one.
Just
You know,
one that I'm aware of.
every campaign needs an Elowen. What can I say?
Yeah, unfortunately, I live with one of my players on the table. She is my wife, so
Oh
uh,
no. She's sneaking onto the computer, isn't she?
no, she's not actually. She's got a headset on and is watching TV. So,
Now.
um, but she did catch the unfortunately when I said it.
Uh-oh. You gotta be careful now. Stakes are rising.
Yep, I've piqued her interest.
So I was going to ask another question. I'm gonna pivot a little bit to for your own security. How far ahead are you planning? Have you even started to think of what possibly another campaign following this would look like? Have you
Yes.
considered? Oh, go more into that then.
So obviously there is a time difference between what goes on in Albion and the time that's passing in Albion to the time that's passing in the modern world. And just to give you a scale, 3 days on Albion is 28 days on Earth, nearly a
Wow.
month. So that time difference actually then when you add it all up and work it all out, one 10 years in Albion is a century that passes in the modern world.
Wow.
So, in terms of that, they're going to have to not only find a way back, but if they want to find a way back to their families, they're also going to have to find a way to travel time backwards as they cross back to the modern world, if they can even find a way. And there's a number of different possible routes that could happen, but one of the themes that I'm really playing with right now is assuming the party survives. That is, the biggest theme that I'm playing with is the idea of well, their story here ending up Viridia at the same time as the either the Archfey or the unknown benefactor, the noble completes their mission in cleaning up the city. So if they end up in Viridia and one of those has won, i.e., the Archfey has won out, then that will be a cue to get them to play in the Feywild as their characters. Yes, at a higher level. Um, and then from the Feywild, it'll be up to them to work through, negotiate, and find their way back to the modern world whilst traveling backwards through time. And that is possible to do within the Feywild, but it's also just as easily to travel forwards in time through the Feywild without realizing it as well.
So it's
So
dangerous.
it is a dangerous gambit if they decide to try and make their way home.
So now, knowing that there's a time difference, does that mean the people that come from Earth age slower, or is it just relative?
They do indeed age slower.
So most of these humans could, in theory, in Albion live up to 1,000 years. If you imagine it's a 10 years in Albion is 100 years on Earth.
Yes.
It'd be very interesting to see a 1,000-year-old human monk roaming around.
It would be. Every 100 years or so on Earth, an event was occurring to bring the players and people from Earth. The last lot was from Cambridge, um, and they're about to meet James and Victoria. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, they don't appear to have aged a bit.
Well,
Um,
what makes humanity so special for some external force to drag them into Albion? It can't just be due to the delayed aging. I mean, in terms of a fantasy world, humans, the tall men, are typically viewed as some of the weaker ones. They have shorter
yes,
lifespans, they aren't strong, they aren't really proficient with the arcane. They're not even close to deities as well in many cases. What makes them so special here that people would drag them of all things in?
So I to be fair, it's going to be so on Earth, science wouldn't be able to explain it because it's a series of random phenomena that appears to occur at various locations when the time basically is right. For those on Albion, the events that generally occur like this, maybe once every 100 years or so, for those on Earth, or every 10 years, give or take, it's only been happening recently.
Hmm.
I've maybe the last 20, 30 years. So it's a recent phenomena for Albion, and it would be an intentional external force that's doing this.
I guess I'm just curious as to why, because it must take an unimaginable amount of not only arcane proficiency, but energy as well. And even
Yep.
accounting for the fact that there might be some forces in Albion actively working against such a thing, preventing external invaders or the crossing of worlds. I just can't imagine why they go out of their way to summon humans at the end of the day.
Because they're already humans, as it were, on in Albion, on this world. It is a naturally occurring species, and it is a majority species. So it'd be much easier for them to hide what they're
Hmm.
doing. But if you can imagine, you've brought over, let's say, over the course of 100 years in Albion, no, even 50 years, let's say you've brought 5 groups of 5 people that have suddenly become very powerful magically, learned the ways of the world, and realize they're not aging, they're not going to be going anywhere, or they're most likely going to decide to stay. And when this entity or this being reveals themselves, say, yeah, hi, it was me, and I've done you a favor and given you the elixir of life and ever looking youthful, and I want you to do this as I am your god. That sort of, why would they pick someone from a faster spinning planet with a much faster timeline and bring them to a slower one where the technology from the other planet is a lot greater, a lot more developed compared to Albion, and bring in with them that knowledge? They want to cause a disturbance or a disruption. That's all I'm going to say.
That's what I went to too, like trying to cause a great change, sort
Yeah.
of in Albion, because obviously these humans will live much longer than most of Albion.
Hmm.
They will have a much longer time to create a change.
Exactly. And these people would be there to see the change as well.
Hmm.
Maybe there's a god out there that doesn't like the idea of magic.
Maybe there is. Maybe there's just a dwarf sitting in a chair that's sort of slowly cursing magic away or something like that.
Who knows?
Every campaign's got one.
It's a
Um,
theory.
so, have the players accidentally helped a villain so far? Oh gosh. Loaded question number 5.
Yep. Absolutely, they have. And they're about to deal with those consequences.
Tell me more about what's waiting for them from Mr. Carnival Man.
This one isn't actually from the Carnival Man Farshoven. This is
Oh,
actually in line with very recent events.
do tell.
Um, Garantha, Gary, as they know him.
Oh goodness.
He's there may be a bit more to him than it seems.
Well, I hope they're more perceptive than they have been so far. What future problems have the players already created for themselves? Just give me one of them. Big one.
I would say the biggest problem that they've created for themselves is they have unwittingly brought the person that is going to be aiding the Black Glass Rift in the long run.
What character is closest to undergoing a great change out of your players?
A couple of the players have already gone through great changes within themselves as characters. I think the next big one is going to be Jess, especially in the Silver Lake cities, where her skills and her abilities are going to be a lot more prominent compared to what they have been so far. Bearing in mind she is a mastermind rogue, her skills lies in the arts of sort of manipulation and planning, plotting, that sort of thing. So her skills are going to become very much a needed requirement within the Silver Lake cities.
Hmm. What character's the closest to becoming dangerous so far?
Steve.
Tell me more.
He is just starting to discover how deep he can go with the magic as a character that he's learning as a wizard. And he's learning this from books and things, reading, studying, that sort of thing, whilst he's in Albion. But he's looking at combining that with his earth-based knowledge of martial arts and the use of martial weapons, so swords, and becoming the Bladesinger wizard that he wants to be. And um, a lot of it is the realization of the depth of magic that he's got available to him in this world. And so far, up until they were level 3, it was okay. There are still some doubts because you're from a scientific world where magic doesn't exist, and there were challenges in place. But now he's hit level 3. And this was what we had agreed as a group beforehand in session 0. When your characters hit level 3, you'll have become attuned to the energy of Albion, and you'll be able to use magic freely. So now that he's gotten to that stage, it's a lot more, oh, I could do this. And how is his character going to react to having that freedom of the magic he can use now? Is he going to be careful with it and disciplined and trained like his martial arts taught him to be? Or is he going to become slightly reckless and power hungry as his character realizes he can do things?
Right.
So that's where I think the danger within the party is.
What character has the most intimate connection to Albion and its deeper world mechanics?
I would say Lou's character, Aura. She is the only one really that's explored on a deeper level what her character is and who she is and what she believes in, and has actually found that connection to a goddess, Shantae,
Mhm.
and that she is going to either become obsessed with Shantae, and if they do make it back to modern world, she's got that other conflict that she's going to have to deal with, which is, well, I've been believing and I've believed and I see Shantae. I like, and now I'm back in this world and I don't know if my prayers are going to be answered anymore. Am I going to be able to just heal people with my abilities that I had? Will Shantae answer and allow me to channel her divinity, or is it just too far? Is it out of her reach? Do I go back to praying to Jesus, etc.? So she's got that dilemma to deal with in the long run. Um, which is going to be a very interesting development. But ultimately, I'd say Aura has grown with the biggest connection so far.
That's excellent. So lead is an anti-material or anti-magical material in your world then.
Yes,
I'm surprised we've got that similar as well. Is the reason that magic is not prevalent or accessible on Earth due to the high concentrations of lead in the soil throughout Earth?
I would certainly suggest that that could be a reason. However, over many, many centuries, science has answered so many questions about things that people thought were, oh, it's magic in the past. If you take herbal remedies like boiling the bark of a willow tree and using that as a form of aspirin, essentially, because that's what aspirin is, as a painkiller or what have you. Originally, go back many centuries, herbalists, and they were quite often considered witches because people didn't understand the properties of what was happening, the properties of the plants, etc. But you look at it now and you go to a counter and you just buy an aspirin.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, it's still the same process from all those years ago. It's just we understand it now and have
So,
developed it.
do the laws of physics and how the world work between Earth and Albion, are they the same or are they different? I know magic exists commonly in Albion, but do the rules of magic and follow the laws of physics, or can magic sort of bypass that? Can it create impossible features?
So, magic in Albion is very much built on the weave. And that will always be the case, no matter where they are in the astral sea, no matter what body or planet they're on, etc. It's the magic is all built on the weave. In terms of the physics and the dynamics, for the most part, it's going to be relatively similar to what they have on Earth, like would have had on Earth. But there are obvious changes where the weave can interfere with it and creates situations where people can levitate, etc. So overall, there's not too much difference. There's just that added layer of the weave where the manipulation of energy and magic and overcoming those physics can be had. And that was what the early challenges with them was mostly about during those first three levels, as they were basically getting over their scientific doubt of magic.
Alright. So,
Does that answer the question? I
it
think I
does
rambled a bit.
answer the question, and it just makes me more curious. So,
God. I did say grill the DM, but hey.
what is Earth's connection to the weave?
Earth's connection to the weave is disconnected for the most part. And the main reason for that is because of the spread of the monotheistic religions, etc. So the weave is kept out from Earth, essentially,
Is it
from the
kept
real
out
world.
by a certain entity or entities, or by a sort of common belief?
For the most part, when you look at D&D and you look at the gods are only alive and they only have their power and they only exist because of the belief.
Hmm.
So do with that information what you will.
All right. We this this is about to be a dumb question. Will
Go on.
will
We needed
Jesus
them.
Christ ever have a cameo in your campaign?
No.
I had to ask, right? I had to throw it in there.
Well,
So,
I asked the same question. Has Jesus Christ ever actually physically spoken to anyone on earth that we are in contact with and is alive today? And the answer is no.
no.
So, no.
All right, let's get to the final few questions for this
Oh,
fireside
brilliant.
chat. What surprised you the most about your players so far?
Oh, that's a good question. What? Oh, you throw me a curveball there.
You've got to finish strong, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true. You do have to finish strong. Um, I would say the thing that surprised me the most about them is despite going into sometimes deadly, sometimes very strange situations that their characters would be encountering, um, they've always kept, for the most part, their compassion about them.
That's very beautiful.
I'd say that's one of the biggest surprises I've had.
It is. I love to see when characters' morals hold up despite these almost unfathomable situations. Because a lot of campaigns, mine especially, are sort of this insurmountable wall, and all you as the GM provide for players is the order to climb.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that people cling on to these things that really make their characters who they are, no matter the changes they go through.
Yes.
What surprised you the most about your own DMing style and yourself during this campaign?
I've actually enjoyed the narrative style that this campaign's taken compared to the gritty turn-based combat that normally occurs almost every other session with most games. Um, the group as players are very much more story focused and narrative driven. And it's actually led me a couple of times to thinking maybe I should have done this as a Daggerheart campaign. Um, but it's I'm enjoying the storytelling aspect of it and the role play uh, uh, and the narrative of it a lot more than I thought I would.
Excellent. If you could go back to the very first session, what would you change?
The introductions to each of their characters as they were coming through the tunnels, um, as they were being dragged through the astral sea and the visions that they had. I would change some of those.
Excellent. And for the very last question of our fireside chat, what moment are you the most proud of for running from your players? What moment will define this campaign for you when you look back at it in the future thus far?
So far, the moment that I'm extremely proud of the players and extremely frustrated as a DM about all at once. I would say was when they were basically being hunted by black glass rit in the wheat fields. Um, I set that encounter up so that their only choice was to run and escape or be captured. And I played it exactly as I should have done. And they turned, they stopped, they fought back, and somehow managed to win. And I'm like,
Excellent.
that was way above what their recommended um, combat rating should have been.
Oh, most certainly. It is I'm a narrative DM in case you couldn't tell. That's
Mm-hmm.
for me what's important. And it's incredible to see what becomes possible when the players start using the narrative as a tool.
Yes,
That is my favorite part of D&D as a whole.
with
But
without a doubt.
with that being the last question, once again, Dice and Destiny Fireside Chat. I'm your venerable host, Spec, with your glorious DM Middle Kitty, and I think I'm signing out.
Thank you. And I'm Metal Kitty. I am the DM, and I'm signing off too. Have a good one, and we'll see you next Friday live.
Bye.
Bye.